The first thing that changes when manifestation actually starts working is not your reality. It's your behavior. More specifically, the urge to chase quietly begins to dissolve, not because you've given up, but because something inside you realizes that chasing was never creating movement. It was creating resistance. This is the paradox almost no one talks about. The more you try to make reality respond, the more you confirm internally that it hasn't. And the quantum field doesn't respond to your words or your effort. It responds to the relationship you have with the present moment. Chasing is not action. Chasing is tension. When you chase an outcome, you're signaling that the present state is insufficient, that something essential is missing, that fulfillment exists somewhere else in some future configuration that has not yet arrived. And that signal, subtle, emotional, embodied, is what the field mirrors back as delay, distance, or repetition. This is why so many people feel like they're doing everything right, and yet nothing moves. They visualize, affirm, plan, prepare, optimize, but the internal posture never changes. The body is still leaning forward. The nervous system is still braced. The attention is still anchored in what is not here yet. From the field's perspective, nothing has shifted. Quantum manifestation does not respond to pursuit. It responds to orientation, to where your system is rooted, to whether your attention lives in lack or presence. And chasing, no matter how spiritual it sounds, is always rooted in lack. Here's the part that feels uncomfortable at first. Effort often feels like alignment, but alignment feels like relief. Effort feels active. Alignment feels quiet. And because we've been conditioned to associate progress with exertion, silence gets misinterpreted as stagnation. But silence is where the signal cleans itself. In physics, fields don't become stronger by pulling harder. They become stronger by stabilizing internally. A magnetic field doesn't move objects by chasing them. It alters the structure of space around it. Objects move because resistance disappears, not because force increases. Manifestation follows the same law. When you stop chasing, you're not doing nothing. You're removing interference. You're allowing your internal field to stop broadcasting urgency, need, and correction. And the moment that broadcast weakens, something subtle but profound begins to happen. Reality no longer has to push against you. Most people miss this phase because it doesn't come with fireworks. There's no sudden confidence boost, no rush of excitement. What appears instead is neutrality, a strange calm, a sense that you don't need to figure it out right now. And the mind immediately questions this state because it feels unproductive. But neutrality is not apathy. It's availability. Availability is what happens when your system no longer demands a specific outcome to feel complete. And completeness is magnetic. When nothing inside you is reaching outward, the field can finally move inward. This is why the phrase, "do nothing," is so misunderstood. It doesn't mean stop living. It doesn't mean withdraw. It means stop correcting the moment. Stop managing the outcome. Stop emotionally rehearsing futures that haven't arrived yet. The moment you stop chasing, the signal changes. Your nervous system relaxes first. Breathing deepens. The constant background tension softens. Attention returns to what's actually happening instead of what should be happening. And this physiological shift is what the quantum field reads most clearly. The field doesn't care what you want. It cares what you are. And when what you are stops being a state of pursuit, the field finally has space to reorganize. Not dramatically, not instantly in obvious ways, but precisely, quietly, without resistance. This is where the paradox deepens. The less you chase, the more reality starts to move. But it moves in ways the chasing mind wouldn't predict. Through timing shifts, through conversations, through doors opening sideways instead of straight ahead. And if you're not paying attention, you might think nothing is happening. But everything is repositioning. In the next part, we'll break down why chasing creates resistance at the neurological and quantum level, and how the very act of trying locks the system into repetition. Because once you understand this, you'll stop confusing effort with alignment, and start noticing how quickly reality changes when you finally stop running after it. Chasing doesn't fail because you're asking for the wrong thing. It fails because of the state from which the asking is happening. And this state is not philosophical, it's biological. When you chase, your nervous system enters a subtle form of survival mode, even if your thoughts sound positive or spiritual. From a neurological perspective, chasing keeps the brain locked in anticipatory circuits. Dopamine spikes toward the future, attention leaves the present, and the body begins preparing for something that hasn't happened yet. This creates a loop where fulfillment is always delayed, because the system is trained to feel complete only after something arrives. But the quantum field doesn't respond to anticipation, it responds to embodiment. When your system lives in anticipation, it broadcasts instability, not chaos, instability. And instability is not magnetic. The field reads it as a signal that the present moment is not a suitable landing space. So instead of collapsing probability toward you, it keeps outcomes suspended. This is why chasing often feels exhausting. You're not just waiting, you're holding tension open. You're keeping the system slightly activated at all times. And a system that is always activated cannot settle into coherence. Coherence requires safety. Safety is not emotional comfort. It's physiological permission to be here, to stop scanning, to stop correcting, to stop projecting yourself into a future that is supposed to rescue the present. And chasing does the opposite. It constantly tells the body that now is not enough. This is also where spiritual language can become misleading. People say things like raise your vibration, stay focused, hold the vision, without realizing that these instructions often increase pressure instead of coherence. Pressure tightens the system. Tight systems don't attract, they repel. The quantum field is not persuaded by focus alone. It is organized by consistency. If one part of you is visualizing a desired outcome, but another part is anxious about timing, the field reads anxiety. If one part is affirming abundance, but another part is monitoring progress obsessively, the field reads lack. If one part is trying to trust, but another part is bracing for disappointment, the field reads instability. The field always responds to the loudest signal, not the most intentional one. Chasing amplifies the loudest signal, urgency. And urgency collapses magnetism because it signals that your system is incomplete without a result. Completion cannot arrive where incompletion is being emitted. This is why letting go often happens only after burnout, after trying everything, after reaching a point where the system can no longer sustain tension. At that moment, chasing collapses not because of wisdom, but because of exhaustion, and suddenly, things move. Not because exhaustion is magical, but because tension finally stopped interfering. The moment you stop chasing, the nervous system recalibrates. Attention returns to the body. Breathing deepens. Thought slows. And this physiological shift sends a completely different message to the field. There is space here now. Space is the signal the field needs. From a quantum perspective, space allows probability waves to reorganize. When you're chasing, probabilities are constantly being pulled into narrow expectations. When you stop chasing, probabilities widen, and widening increases the chance of collapse, not toward what you demanded, but toward what aligns. This is where manifestation begins to feel paradoxical. You do less, but more happens. You stop planning, but things organize. You release control, and timing synchronizes. Not because the universe rewards surrender, but because surrender removes resistance. In the next part, we'll clarify the most misunderstood phrase in manifestation, do nothing, and explain why it does not mean passivity, laziness, or waiting. It means something far more precise, the removal of interference at the exact point where chasing once lived, because when chasing ends, receiving becomes inevitable. The phrase do nothing is one of the most misunderstood instructions in manifestation, because the mind immediately translates it as passivity, laziness, or giving up. But in the context of quantum manifestation, do nothing has nothing to do with inaction. It means something far more precise, removing the internal behaviors that were interfering with the signal. Doing nothing is not the absence of movement. It's the absence of correction. Most people are not chasing externally. They are chasing internally. They are constantly adjusting their emotional state, monitoring their thoughts, revising their expectations, checking whether they are aligned, and subtly trying to manage how the future should arrive. That internal micromanagement is what creates resistance. When you do nothing, what actually stops is this internal interference. You stop negotiating with reality. You stop rehearsing outcomes. You stop emotionally leaning forward into the future. This creates a profound shift inside the nervous system. The body exits the loop of anticipation. Attention returns to the present moment without force. And when attention stabilizes, the system finally sends a coherent signal to the field. From the quantum perspective, interference collapses probability prematurely. It narrows the range of possible outcomes and locks the system into familiar timelines. When interference stops, probability expands. And expansion is what allows new realities to form. This is why doing nothing often feels uncomfortable at first. The mind interprets the lack of effort as danger. It asks, "Shouldn't I be doing something?" That discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that an old identity is losing control. The identity that believes it must manage reality to survive. As that identity relaxes, something unexpected happens. Intuition becomes clearer. Action becomes simpler. Decisions arise naturally instead of being forced. You don't stop acting. You stop acting from tension. Action that comes from coherence feels clean. It doesn't drain you. It doesn't create doubt afterward. This is the difference between inspired action and chasing. Inspired action emerges after the signal stabilizes. Chasing happens when the signal is unstable and trying to correct itself. Doing nothing is what allows this distinction to appear. Another important piece here is timing. When you chase, you are constantly trying to accelerate time. You want things now. You want proof now. You want reassurance now. And that pressure distorts timing because it signals impatience. When you stop chasing, time reorganizes itself. You're no longer waiting for something to start your life. Life continues. And in that continuation, opportunities can finally land because you're present enough to receive them. This is why manifestation often shows up when people are focused on living, not manifesting. Living is receptive. Chasing is not. The paradox becomes clear here. The less you try to manifest, the more you align with the conditions under which manifestation actually happens. You stop performing spirituality. You stop using techniques as leverage. You stop asking the future to validate you. And because you stop asking, the field begins answering. This is the phase where reality starts to feel closer, even if nothing visible has changed yet. A sense of quiet confidence appears, not because you know what's coming, but because you're no longer afraid of not knowing. That comfort with uncertainty is deeply magnetic. In the next part, we'll explore the exact internal signals that tell you chasing has truly stopped, how to recognize that shift without turning it into another goal, and how to anchor that state so the field can respond without interruption. Because when you stop chasing correctly, receiving is no longer something you wait for, it's something that begins organizing itself around you. There is a very specific internal moment when chasing truly stops, and it's not dramatic. There's no declaration, no certainty about outcomes, no emotional high. What appears instead is a quiet neutrality, a sense that you're no longer trying to position yourself in front of life. You're simply inside it. This is when the signal changes. You're not checking whether something is working, you're not scanning for confirmation. You're not mentally rehearsing different futures. The mind relaxes its grip not because you forced it to, but because it no longer sees a problem that needs solving. That absence of problem is what the field recognizes as readiness. At this stage, desire hasn't disappeared. It has lost urgency. It's no longer pulling your attention forward. It's no longer demanding energy. It's present, but it's settled. And a settled desire does not distort the signal. This is the point where many people accidentally reintroduce chasing without realizing it. They notice the calm and think, this must be alignment. And then they try to use it. They try to act from it, speed it up, or lock it in. But the moment you try to capitalize on coherence, you turn it into effort again. The field doesn't respond to moments. It responds to continuity. Continuity means staying where you are internally, even when nothing seems to be happening yet. It means allowing neutrality to exist without labeling it as progress or stagnation. It means not asking the calm to prove itself. This is also why this phase feels unfamiliar. Many people are used to identifying movement through tension. When tension disappears, the mind assumes something is missing. But nothing is missing. What's gone is interference. From a nervous system perspective, this is regulation stabilizing. The body is no longer preparing for arrival or disappointment. It's simply present, and presence is the cleanest signal you can emit. To anchor this state, action comes before sensation. Not effort, action. A simple neutral action that tells the system what frequency to organize around. Write, "I'm not chasing" in the comments. Not because you feel it completely yet and not to convince yourself, but because language directs attention. Attention stabilizes the nervous system, and the nervous system shapes the signal. This isn't for visibility. It's a quiet alignment with the state you're stepping into. When chasing stops at this level, reality doesn't need to be summoned. It begins adjusting on its own timeline, and the less you interfere, the clearer that adjustment becomes. In the next part, we'll look at what starts happening after you stop chasing, how reality begins to move closer without force, and how to avoid the subtle impulse to start running again when things finally feel within reach. Because once you stop chasing properly, receiving doesn't feel like an event. It feels like something quietly returning to you. Once chasing stops at the internal level, reality doesn't rush forward to reward you. It recalibrates its distance. Things that once felt far away no longer feel out of reach, not because they arrived yet, but because the gap between you and them has quietly closed. This is one of the clearest signs that the field has begun responding. You may notice that situations resolve themselves without your involvement. Conversations shift tone without explanation. Opportunities surface through people or paths you weren't tracking. None of it feels dramatic enough to announce as manifestation, and that's precisely why it works. The system stays relaxed because nothing feels forced. When you chase, reality resists. When you stop, reality reorganizes. This reorganization rarely follows the plan your mind imagined. It doesn't move in straight lines. It doesn't obey timelines. It doesn't show up with labels. Instead, it adjusts conditions. It alters sequences. It creates proximity. From a quantum perspective, this is probability collapsing without pressure. When interference is removed, outcomes no longer have to push through resistance. They slide into place through the path of least tension. This is why many people miss the arrival. They're waiting for something obvious while reality is quietly repositioning everything underneath. The mind is trained to recognize effort-based progress, not coherence-based change. So when change arrives softly, it gets overlooked. But softness is a feature, not a flaw. The softer the arrival, the less likely you are to disrupt it. The nervous system remains regulated. The field stays stable. And because stability is preserved, the movement continues. This is also the phase where impatience can subtly return. Not as anxiety, but as curiosity disguised as intelligence. Thoughts like, maybe I should clarify things. Or, this feels close. Maybe I should act now. These impulses don't come from intuition. They come from old conditioning that associates motion with control. Control at this stage is unnecessary. Action still happens, but it arises naturally. It feels obvious. It doesn't require justification, and it doesn't pull you out of presence. When action is aligned, it doesn't feel like chasing, it feels like responding. Responding is different from initiating. Initiation comes from lack. Response comes from coherence. This is how the field continues to move without resistance. You stay available, not vigilant. You remain open, not expectant. And in that openness, reality completes its movement without being rushed or redirected. Many people look back on these moments later and realize that what they thought was luck was simply the absence of interference sustained long enough for things to settle. Nothing magical happened in the external sense. Something very specific happened internally. They stopped chasing and didn't start again. In the final part, we'll bring everything together. Why stopping the chase is not a one-time decision, but a state that needs stabilization.
And now, as this message comes to a close, take a moment to notice something subtle but profound. Nothing outside of you has changed, yet everything feels different. This is the paradox most people never understand. The moment you stop chasing, forcing, and gripping life with tension, your nervous system finally receives the signal that it is safe. And when the body feels safe, reality begins to reorganize itself around you. You were never meant to hunt peace. You were never meant to run after love, success, or validation. Chasing is a language of survival. Stillness is the language of power. When you slow your breath, relax your jaw, soften your shoulders, and release the urgency to make things happen, your nervous system shifts from fight or flight into coherence. In that state, your brain, heart, and body begin to work as one signal instead of fragmented noise. This is when opportunities arrive without effort. This is when people respond differently to you. This is when solutions appear before problems fully form, not because you tried harder, but because you finally stopped resisting the present moment. The universe does not respond to desperation. It responds to regulation. So let go of the chase. Let go of the timelines. Let go of the need to prove, control, or rush. Sit in the calm authority of your own presence. From here, your nervous system becomes the signal, and reality follows. Remember this truth. What is meant for you does not require pursuit. It requires alignment. Stay still, stay grounded, and watch how life starts moving toward you.